was sliding. That was sliding. Snowing, and I don't want to be driving my Camaro in the snow. So this video serves as two parts. Number one, if I die, here you go, my last video. Number two, I'm going to try and give you guys my experience of what it's like driving a Camaro 2SS 1LE, basically with track tires in the snow. I'm on the freeway heading back to Utah. Let me show you guys some clips. Let me talk you guys through it. I'm going to throw it into snow and ice mode, and we're going to putt this baby along, but I have a feeling I have many hours of this ahead of me in the snow. Hopefully I can make it back okay. All right, let's throw this in snow mode here. We don't want U-track mode, snow and ice mode. Here we go. But as you guys can see, it is starting to snow. It's going to get worse. It's not showing up really good on my phone. But this is pretty minor. I'm not too worried right now, but it gets much worse than this. It's going to be interesting. And what's crazy about this is it's literally like the exact same time of year when Josh and I were driving back from Iowa with my Bullet Mustang on the scariest drive of my life, and I've been through some pretty nasty conditions. But let me go ahead. I am going to flip the phone around. I'm not going to be looking at a camera. I'm going to be focusing on the road. So let me kind of give you guys an idea of what I'm driving in right now and what it's like and how this car does. So it's not showing really good up on the screen. It really doesn't look like it's snowing all that much, but I'm going to try and go ahead and record this on my performance data recorder, and hopefully this will catch a little bit better glimpse of what is happening. So the biggest thing that scares me with snow, and especially with these tires, you know, growing up in Idaho, I'm very comfortable driving on the snow. I'm very comfortable driving on the ice. Granted, I'm not an expert at it, but when it comes to driving in these conditions with the wrong tires, it's what really scares you. It's not the flat parts of the road that I have issues with. It's going up hills, because if we get really slow, or if we get really slowed down and I have to basically get in a more aggressive gear, the car's not going to want to go up any hills, especially if we stop on any kind of a hill. Now going downhill, that's also scary, because if the back end starts getting away from you and these tires, it's going to be pretty nasty pretty quick. So the trick I found, and not really a trick, really the proper way to try and drive in the snow, is you almost want to lug the car. And what I mean by that, see, we're slowing down right now. I don't like this. So use your gears to slow down. You don't want to use the brakes if you can avoid it. Use your gearing to slow the car down, because any type of movement with the brakes, you know, too harsh, it can kick things out sideways. So my best advice, going down a hill, put it in a gear where the RPMs really hold you up very well. So like if you're going, you know, if third gear goes out to 90 miles an hour, or second gear, I mean, guys, like, obviously we're going a lot slower than that, and we're driving in very cautious speeds, but what I'm saying is, be in a gear that gets you around 3 to 4 to even 5,000 RPMs going down a hill. And when you guys are going uphill, you don't want to be that high in the RPMs. You want to be lugging it going uphill. So if I'm, like right now, I'm downshifting, I'm in third, because I want the revs to be a lot higher. But when we do start to go up a hill again, I'm going to want to be in 5th or 6th gear. The reason for that is if I'm in a gear that has a lot higher RPMs, more than likely the car will start slipping. And what you want a car to be able to do in these types of conditions is to be able to carry your momentum positively going uphill, and then you want to use the car, not the brakes if you can help it. You want to use your gearing to slow the car down. So use your momentum to push you up the hill in a very kind of tall gear that you can just kind of lug, like right now. We're going about kind of mid 60s, and I'm in 6th gear, and until the car starts kind of bogging out trying to go uphill, I am going to keep it in this gear. Now, if we start going downhill, I don't want to be in 6th gear, 5th gear, especially if the car starts, coasting or going faster. I want those RPMs to be helping me slow down just in case I have to use the brakes and I have to slow down quite a bit. So right now we're doing okay. These conditions aren't scaring me too bad, but I definitely know the type of country we're in, and it's going to continue to get worse. Now, I also pay attention to really what the road looks like in front of me. Now, the road in front of me right now, I'm seeing water kick up, and that doesn't make me nervous. If I start to see tire tracks on the road, that makes me nervous, because that means that there's enough moisture, or, in the case of snow, there's enough snow going down that it is blanketing the road faster than cars can essentially go over it and make it into slush. So right now, the water on the road, obviously water with these tires, it's not great, even just driving around the city. So you definitely want to be in snow and ice mode. You definitely want to lug it. Right now, I'm not too concerned because we're kind of on a flat spot. I haven't felt the car get away from me, so I think we're okay for right now. But as you can see on the side of the road, on both sides of the road, the snow is sticking to the ground. Obviously, I'm about midday. You want to try and travel, if you can, when it's warmer in the day, because what you want to avoid is those colder temperatures, because when it gets cold, this water is going to turn to ice, and then you're going to have to deal with snow. So those are just a couple things as I'm driving along here, just to kind of coach you guys of how I approach it. Obviously, what I will say is, when you're driving in this type of weather, don't be worried about the car behind you and what they're doing. You can't worry about them, but make sure and give yourself plenty of space. See, right now we're starting to slow down, and that's a prime example. Yep, that car threw on their hazards, which is great. That's what you need to do in a situation like this. I'm going to do the same. Don't worry about the car behind you, because if they're going to hit you, they're going to hit you. You can't drive based on what they do. See, like right now, we're 30 miles an hour, and I'm in 2nd gear, just kind of going slow. Give yourself plenty of room with the car ahead of you. I really want to get over into the slower lane here in a second, because you always have those kind of cars that are just going to go way faster than they need to. Now, I don't mind right now. You can hear the engine of the car. We're revving out pretty aggressively. I feel okay shifting into 3rd. If it starts to get a little bit dicey, my first move is to shift it back down into 2nd. But I'm going to let 3rd gear kind of run it out here for a while before I really do anything. But yeah, essentially what I want to do, and also something you want to be cautious of, is when you do cross over, I'm not too worried about crossing over right there, but make sure and identify, if you're going to change lanes, what the road condition looks like in the middle of the road. Because if you're carrying enough speed and you try to cross that center line, that's where a lot of people get squirrely, is trying to get over to pass someone, trying to get over in the slower lane, and there's a whole bunch of slush and stuff. You can see what this car is kind of kicking up in the middle of the road. That's where a lot of people get into trouble, is you don't pay attention to the center of the road. And especially with a car like this, I am very cautious when I change lanes. In fact, I slow down. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to slow down when you change lanes. You're supposed to keep your same speed. But in these types of conditions, especially with a rear-wheel drive car, you want to be very cautious of your speed as you're shifting gears. So we're moving back along pretty good. I'm not too worried. But as we kind of come up through the mountains, as we come up through some of these more, high and low spots, temperatures change, precipitation changes. The only thing that does make me a little bit nervous is we are starting to climb in elevation. And as we climb in elevation, usually that's where the storms get worse. But anyways, guys, I'm going to try and coach you along. If there's anything else that I kind of come up with as we're driving here, I'll share it with you guys. But hopefully we can be okay kind of driving through this. And don't be afraid, guys. Don't be a hero. Don't be afraid to pull off the road if you need to pull off. Wait out the storm, wait out the weather. Don't push your car in inclement weather. One thing I will say right now, if you guys are, kind of doing the same thing that I'm doing, one thing that you don't want to do, or what you want to try to avoid, are semis. Because in a condition like this, typically I'd be over in the right-hand road because of the car that I'm driving. But I know that there's a semi up here, and there'll be other semis. Semis in general go extremely slow going up passes. However, when you add these conditions in, you have to think about they're fighting the same issue that I'm fighting, but a lot more significant. They got a lot more weight that is pushing them downhill, and it's dragging them going uphill. So what I recommend is when you have an opportunity of 3 lanes like this, if you're wanting to play it safe like me, get in the middle lane, because those semis, if you get behind them, they can be going so slow that if you eventually lose enough power, you won't be able to get enough grip to go uphill. Now, these roads aren't quite at that state where you'd worry about completely just losing that traction. I think you could kind of gain it, but it's not worth risking it. It's not worth risking these cars. So right now, 6th gear, just kind of lugging it up the hill. When we do get to the top, one thing you have to worry about is if you're using a lot of speed, especially when roads are really slick, what the biggest issue you guys have to worry about is some of these cars, especially these Camaros, Challengers, you name it, they're not going to be able to make it up some of these hills, and you have to carry quite a bit of speed to push you up the hill. Because if you're having to downshift and get in the higher RPMs, that's when the tires are going to spin, that's when I kick it out. So right here, I'm reaching the crest of a mountain, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to get over, and I'm going to put it in 3rd gear, and I am going to eliminate that speed that I had carrying me up over the hill because I don't need it anymore. It got me up to the top of the hill. I can tell it's kind of flattening out, but up here I can tell we're going to start going downhill here again soon. So, got to be cautious of that. Don't let the speed carry up over the top and then you're like, oh crap, I got to slow down again. And I can't really tell what it's doing. So usually when you can't tell what it's doing, your best bet is just let the RPMs carry you. It looks like we're actually going to be going uphill instead of downhill, so I was wrong. So I'm going to go ahead, downshift it to make sure I'm carrying my momentum. We do have some slower cars or some trailers ahead of me, so I'm going to switch gears and just lug this thing up the hill. And it'll take it. These big V8s, they'll take it. I'm going, low 60s in 6th gear. Yeah, it's lugging it, but it'll take it. But what I'm immediately going to do is I'm going to start downshifting the gears as soon as we've reached the peak of this hill so we can actually slow the car down. But not quite there yet. Another thing we didn't talk about, turns. Turns are our worst enemy in rear-wheel drive cars. They're not good. If you're carrying too much speed, that is where your back end is going to get away from you, and you're going to have to try and correct it the best you can. So be cautious on turns. Go slow, guys. Slow is key. And going uphill, carry as much speed as you can cautiously. So you can see here we're at a 5% downgrade. I'm going to start playing my gears correctly and going slow. So yeah, we're about 3,500 RPMs. I like it there because I don't have to really touch on the gas. And I'm just going to let that ride us down the hill and also enjoy some exhaust sounds while we're in the process. Now this is borderline. I want to get around this guy because it's going to hurt your visibility. That's another thing. When you're behind some of these big trucks, it can really mess with your visibility. But the center looks good, so I'm going to cross that. But you got to be able to see the best you can. If you can't see, then you're in big trouble, because if you can't see, you don't know if you're going uphill or if you're going downhill. And that's probably the scariest part. When Josh and I were coming back from Iowa last year, I couldn't tell if I was going up or if I was going down. And that's a scary thing because it was just a complete whiteout and it was pretty sketchy. And why that's dangerous is you can be going downhill and not know it and carry too much speed, and when you need to slow down, or if traffic all of a sudden comes to a stop, you're in a world of hurt. Or if you're going too slow going uphill and you have to get into some aggressive gears to be able to get up that hill, you might be in a situation and a rear-wheel drive car won't carry you up the hill. So anyways, guys, it looks like the conditions here are getting better. If I reach another spot where it's just getting really dicey or I don't like it, I'll go ahead and flip this back on for you guys. But those are some of my tips and tricks. If you're driving these cars in winter, you can do it, but be very cautious. Your tires really depend on so many things. Your tires make or break you being able to drive, but you can drive a rear-wheel drive car in wintertime. I've done it. I daily drive my cars, but you definitely, when the road conditions get sketchy, you definitely want to be cautious. And one thing that I want to add is do your homework before you travel. Know what the weather conditions are like, but more importantly, know the hot spots or the bad spots, if you will, along the way. When we were coming back from Iowa last year, there was spots that a lot of people have said are horrendous, horrible, because just depending on the elevation, depending on where you're going through, some of those places are known to get just heavy amounts of snow, and then 10 miles later, you're in the clear, you're good. That's how it was for us. And so do your homework, know what passes you're going through, know what roads you're going on, look at the weather for that day, get an idea of the conditions, and don't push it. It's not worth it in these cars. Sometimes you get stuck in these storms and you have to go through it, or you have to pull off the side of the road. So don't push your luck. Know ahead of time what you're dealing with, and you should be okay. That was sliding. Anyways, guys, I'm Moss with Gone in 60. I hope you enjoyed today's video. We'll catch you on the next one, and pray that I arrive home safe. Thanks, guys. Bye.